Sergeant Harold Hal Mendez wasn't the kind of man who talked much about the past. At 81, the Korean War felt like another lifetime, a black and white memory from an old reel, buried beneath layers of ordinary days. His medals, though neatly displayed in a small glass case in his living room, had collected a fine coat of dust. Not because he didn't care, because he didn't need to be reminded. Every morning in his modest home on the east side of town, Hal stuck to a familiar routine. He'd wake before sunrise, heat up a single cup of water for instant coffee, and step onto his porch with the same quiet reverence he once had during morning formation. His neighbors waved when they saw him, often calling out, "Morning, Sergeant," with affection. Most of them had grown up hearing stories of the brave but gentle man who had helped organize food drives, repair community benches, and stand guard outside the elementary school crosswalk. But there was something else they all knew. Hal's health had started to falter. He'd had 2 small heart attacks in the last 5 years. The VA hospital had him on a tight regimen, 6 pills in the morning, 4 in the evening. But one of them, a critical heart medication, had recently been flagged for a refill. He had 1 pill left, just 1. It was a Friday afternoon. That morning, Hal had received a call from his VA physician, Dr. Angela Brooks, who told him she'd prepared a new handwritten refill since the VA system was undergoing a digital update. "It's valid, Sergeant. Just hand it over at the pharmacy. You'll be fine," she assured him. Hal trusted her. After all, she'd been his doctor for nearly a decade. He tucked the folded slip into his wallet and buttoned his cardigan. The forecast predicted rain, but he didn't bring an umbrella. He didn't plan on being out long. The walk to MediPoint Pharmacy was slow but manageable. He passed the bakery that gave him day-old muffins each Wednesday and tipped his hat at the florist arranging sunflowers on the corner. At the pharmacy entrance, he paused, not out of fatigue but habit, and saluted the flagpole out front. Inside, the store was bright and sterile, smelling of rubbing alcohol and freshly printed receipts. The line at the pharmacy counter was short, just a mother juggling a toddler and a man in a delivery uniform. When it was Hal's turn, he stepped up, placed the prescription on the counter, and gave the young woman behind the glass a warm, practiced smile. She didn't return it. Her name tag read Kelsey, and she couldn't have been more than 25. Her expression didn't change as she picked up the slip, glanced at it, and frowned. "This is handwritten," she said flatly. "Yes, ma'am. My doctor said the system's being updated. She told me to bring this in," Hal explained calmly. Kelsey tapped her keyboard, shook her head, and said, "We don't accept these anymore. It's policy." Hal blinked. "It's valid." Dr. Brooks said, "I don't care what your doctor said," she cut in. "This could be forged. We've had issues." Hal's smile faded just slightly, but he kept his voice steady. "Ma'am, I served in Korea. I'm not looking to cause trouble. I just need my refill. It's my last dose." Instead of responding, Kelsey reached down, grabbed the slip, and tore it clean in half, dropping it into the trash bin beside her stool. Hal stared. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. "Next," Kelsey called, looking past him. And just like that, Hal Mendez, war hero, community volunteer, and patriot, was dismissed. He turned, silent, and walked slowly toward the exit. He didn't yet know that 6 minutes later, justice would be walking through that door behind him. Hal's shoes scuffed softly against the linoleum as he made his way out of the pharmacy. The air outside had turned damp and heavy with the smell of rain. He paused under the awning, pulling his cardigan tighter against a sudden chill, not from the weather, but from what had just happened. Inside, Kelsey had already moved on to the next customer. Her voice was light now, even playful, as she joked with a young man picking up vitamins. There was no sign on her face of the contempt she'd just poured onto an elderly veteran, no indication that she'd just shredded a vital prescription like it was a grocery receipt. Hal glanced back once through the window, hoping she'd realize what she'd done. But she didn't look up. A young employee in a blue apron stood nearby, sweeping near the entrance. He had overheard the exchange, his eyes wide with disbelief. As Hal stepped past him, the boy murmured, "Sir, I'm sorry. That wasn't right." Hal gave a faint smile, touched his shoulder, and said quietly, "You have a good day, son." As Hal shuffled toward the street, 6 minutes behind him, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the pharmacy lot. The passenger door opened, and a tall woman in her 40s stepped out. Her suit was sharp, her gait purposeful. She had a Bluetooth in one ear and a leather folder tucked under one arm. She was Rachel Stern, the newly appointed Regional Director of MediPoint Pharmacies, and this visit was unannounced. Rachel had received several complaints over the past month regarding poor customer service and delays at this particular location. She had come to observe quietly, maybe hold a staff meeting later. She had no idea what she was about to walk into. As she entered the pharmacy, the atmosphere changed slightly. Staff straightened up, and Kelsey's posture stiffened when she spotted the director's badge. Rachel didn't speak right away. She simply stood off to the side, watching. And then the boy in the blue apron approached her. Nervously, almost hesitantly, he whispered something in her ear. Rachel's brows knitted. "Did you say a veteran?" The boy nodded. "Yes, ma'am. He had a heart medication script. It was handwritten, but he said the VA doctor authorized it. Kelsey." She tore it up, right in front of him. Rachel didn't move for a second. Her jaw tightened. "Where is he now?" "He just left, headed toward Main Street. He was walking real slow." Without another word, Rachel spun around and walked straight to the counter. Kelsey was mid-sentence with another customer when she felt the shadow looming. Rachel's voice was sharp. "Step away, now!" Kelsey blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said step away from the counter. This is no longer your station." Kelsey's mouth opened, but Rachel raised her badge. "I'm Regional Director Stern, and I just received a first-hand report that you destroyed a veteran's medication request. You want to tell me what happened before I check the security footage and call corporate legal?" Kelsey stammered. "It was handwritten. It's not allowed. Policy says—" "No," Rachel snapped. "Policy allows VA-authorized handwritten prescriptions in cases where digital systems are down. That policy has been in effect for 3 years. You didn't check. You didn't confirm. You humiliated a veteran who risked his life for this country." Behind her, the other employees had gone quiet. Even the customers had paused. Rachel turned to the assistant manager. "Get me that slip from the trash. Now." The manager hesitated. "It was torn." "I don't care if it's ashes. Get it." The assistant manager moved fast, fishing the torn paper from the bin. Rachel stared at it a moment, then said, "Bag it. I'm hand-delivering this to the VA myself." Then, without looking at Kelsey again, she ordered, "Call Mr. Dawson at corporate. Tell him we have a termination request." The sidewalk stretched out endlessly in front of Hal, each step heavier than the last. He hadn't made it far from the pharmacy, just 2 blocks, when a tightness in his chest began to build. At first, he thought it was anger, shame, the sting of being dismissed, belittled. But it wasn't. It was something deeper, more dangerous. A sharp pain pierced beneath his sternum. His breath caught. Hal paused, gripping the cold metal railing of a bus stop. His vision blurred. A buzzing sound grew in his ears. And then his knees buckled. He slumped to the ground, body trembling, struggling to breathe. His hand fumbled inside his coat pocket, where his bottle of heart medication should have been. It wasn't. The pharmacy hadn't filled it. Kelsey had ripped it in half. He couldn't believe this was happening. Not here. Not like this. On a cracked sidewalk with no one beside him. After everything, after surviving IED blasts in Fallujah, malaria in Kandahar, and years of serving a country he loved, was this how it would end? A few feet away, inside a parked sedan, a woman was scrolling on her phone, waiting for her lunch break to end. Her name was Lena Chavez, a trauma nurse from the local VA hospital. She had picked up some takeout, parked under a tree, and was about to head back when movement on the sidewalk caught her eye. She saw Hal collapse. At first, she thought he had tripped, maybe stumbled over the curb, but something about the way he crumpled, slow, sudden, heavy, set off alarms in her mind. She threw open the door and was at his side in seconds. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" Hal's lips moved, but no words came. His skin was pale, almost gray. Lena dropped her bag, checked his pulse. Faint, thready. She didn't hesitate. She ripped open her purse and pulled out a nitrile glove packet and a portable emergency kit she always kept in her trunk. A few people were starting to gather now, murmuring, unsure of what to do. "Someone call 911 now," she barked. A man in a suit stepped aside and fumbled with his phone. Lena leaned over Hal. "Stay with me, soldier. You're not going out like this. Not today." She found his military ID card tucked in his wallet. Rhett, SSG Harold Branson. Her heart twisted. She knew the name. He'd come into the VA clinic just last month for a routine checkup. A quiet man, gentle eyes, wrote thank you notes to nurses. "You're not leaving us yet, Staff Sergeant?" she whispered, gripping his hand. "You hear me? Help's coming." Meanwhile, across town, Rachel Stern sat in her car, the torn prescription laid out on the passenger seat like a crime scene. She was dialing the VA's main office when her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. She answered sharply. "Stern?" "Hi. Yes, I'm trying to reach someone from MediPoint Corporate," the voice said breathlessly. "There's been a medical emergency involving one of your customers, an older veteran. He collapsed outside your location on 5th and Maple. I think he was just in your store." Rachel's blood ran cold. "His name?" she asked. "Hal Branson, Staff Sergeant." Rachel's hand trembled. "I'm en route," she said. "Stay with him. Don't let him go." She hung up, slammed the car into drive, and took off down the street. She didn't know if she'd make it in time, but she knew this much. MediPoint Pharmacy had just crossed a line. By the time Rachel Stern reached the pharmacy, emergency lights bathed the street in a chaotic wash of red and blue. A small crowd had gathered, murmuring among themselves as paramedics worked quickly to stabilize Hal on a stretcher. Oxygen was flowing. An IV was started. His shirt was cut open to monitor his vitals. Rachel parked half on the curb, didn't bother locking her car. She jogged toward the scene, flashing her corporate badge at a uniformed officer. "I'm with MediPoint. What's his status?" A paramedic looked up. "He's conscious, barely. Systolic dropped to the 60s. He's lucky someone found him. Massive cardiac event. Could have gone fatal without intervention." Rachel's stomach sank. Then she saw Lena standing off to the side, arms crossed, eyes sharp and unblinking. "You're the nurse who helped him?" Rachel asked. Lena nodded. "He would have died right there if I hadn't seen him fall." Rachel took a breath. "Thank you. I owe you more than you know." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Then maybe you should ask your pharmacist why he was out here without his medication." That struck like a slap. Rachel turned and strode straight into the pharmacy. The door dinged as she entered, drawing the attention of both clerks behind the counter. Customers were browsing, but the mood was quiet, unsettled. Kelsey was typing at the terminal when she looked up. She froze. Her smirk vanished. Rachel walked straight up to the counter, unblinking. "You tore up a veteran's prescription?" Kelsey hesitated, glancing at the other clerk. He didn't have the right refill approval. It's policy." Rachel slapped a paper on the counter. It was the faxed refill authorization from the VA, time-stamped 2 hours earlier. "So what's this then? You had the approval. You just didn't want to deal with him." I didn't see that come through," Kelsey stammered. "Maybe the system—" "No, don't even try." Rachel's voice was steel. "You looked at an elderly veteran in pain and decided he didn't matter. You tore his prescription in half, laughed at him, and now he's being rushed to the ICU." The other clerk stepped back. A customer in the aisle turned to listen. The tension was razor sharp. "I didn't mean for—" Kelsey began. "You don't get to finish that sentence," Rachel said coldly. She pulled her phone from her coat and made a call. "This is Rachel Stern. Effective immediately, Kelsey Madsen is terminated from MediPoint Pharmacy for cause, patient endangerment, and misconduct. I want her locked out of all systems within 5 minutes." Kelsey gasped. "You can't just—" Rachel cut her off. "Leave your badge on the counter and pray Mr. Branson pulls through." Security was already stepping inside. Kelsey's face turned pale as she grabbed her purse and was escorted out in silence. Rachel turned to the remaining staff. "Let this be clear. This pharmacy serves every patient with dignity. I don't care if it's a billionaire or a homeless vet. No one gets turned away because of your attitude." The staff nodded silently. Rachel walked back out to the street where the ambulance doors were about to close. She approached the paramedics. "Wait," she said softly. She leaned in and gently placed something into Hal's hand, a new bottle of his medication, filled on site from the emergency stock. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "You deserved better." Hal looked up, eyes glassy, but there was a flicker of recognition. Rachel stepped back and watched as the ambulance pulled away. As it disappeared down the street, she stood alone on the sidewalk, realizing that for the first time in a long while, accountability had arrived exactly when it was needed most. 3 days later, the photo went viral. A bystander at the scene had snapped a picture of Hal being wheeled into the ambulance, oxygen mask pressed to his face, with the pharmacy's glowing sign behind him. The caption read, "Vietnam vet denied heart meds, collapsed on the sidewalk." A nurse saved his life. Within hours, the story had been picked up by local news, then syndicated nationally. Reddit threads exploded with outrage. Veterans groups shared the article across platforms. Justice for Hal trended for an entire day on Twitter. At the VA hospital, Hal lay recovering, unaware of the firestorm building beyond his room. The attending cardiologist, Dr. Patel, made a quiet remark to Rachel when she visited. "You got him here just in time. He had a full occlusion in his LAD artery. They call it the Widowmaker for a reason. Another 10 minutes and he'd have died on that sidewalk." Rachel hadn't slept well in days. The guilt gnawed at her, but she stayed at Hal's bedside, signing forms, coordinating his care, bringing him comfort items, chocolate pudding, an old Western novel, a clean flannel blanket. Hal, weakened but grateful, had finally spoken that morning. "They always tell us we're heroes," he said, his voice hoarse. "Then they let us rot when we need 'em most." Rachel couldn't meet his eyes. Outside the hospital, protesters began to gather near the pharmacy branch. Veterans in uniform, families holding signs. One read, "My dad didn't fight in Nam to be treated like garbage." Another simply said, "We are not invisible." MediPoint's corporate office issued a statement by noon. "We are deeply saddened by the incident involving Mr. Hal Branson. While one employee acted reprehensibly, she does not reflect the values of our company. Immediate disciplinary action has been taken, and we are initiating sweeping reforms across all locations." But the damage was done. Emails flooded in, phone lines lit up with angry calls. Local veterans organizations announced a boycott of MediPoint pharmacies until systemic changes were proven, not just promised. Internally, heads rolled. Kelsey's manager, who had allegedly received complaints about her before but failed to act, was placed on indefinite leave pending investigation. The district supervisor resigned 2 days later. Rachel, meanwhile, spearheaded a new initiative, Vets First, prioritizing medication processing for veterans and offering sensitivity training to every MediPoint employee across the nation. Hal's story struck a nerve, not just because of what happened, but because it symbolized what too often happens in silence. On the 6th day, a press conference was held outside the VA. Hal, in a wheelchair, wearing his faded Navy cap, sat quietly beside Rachel. Cameras flashed. He spoke slowly but clearly. "I'm not here to punish anyone," he said, "but I'll be damned if I stay quiet while another vet gets turned away. We gave this country everything. The least we deserve is a bottle of pills and a little respect." The crowd applauded. A few saluted. Rachel followed with a statement of her own. "We failed Mr. Branson, but failure doesn't have to be final. It can be the beginning of change. As of today, every MediPoint location will implement mandatory veteran care protocols. No more delays, no more excuses. We will do better." Later that night, Hal was discharged from the hospital. As Rachel helped him into her car, he looked over and said, "I've had heart attacks before, but this time something tells me the world might actually listen." Rachel smiled. "It already is." And as they pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the chaos and cameras, the world outside was just beginning to wake up to a truth veterans had known for decades. Being a hero doesn't end with the war, but it damn well deserves recognition afterward. 2 months had passed. The leaves had begun to turn, casting golden shadows across Hal Branson's porch, where he now sat most mornings with a cup of weak coffee and a strong heart. He was healing, not just physically, but in ways he hadn't expected. Neighbors who once nodded from afar now stopped to chat. Local school children mailed him handmade thank you cards. A high school even invited him to speak on Veterans Day. Rachel visited every week. She no longer wore her pharmacy badge. She'd been promoted, not as a reward, but as a challenge, to oversee the new national Vets First program she helped design. Under her guidance, hundreds of veterans reported quicker service, respectful treatment, and renewed trust in the system. Hal's face had become a quiet symbol, not of pity, but of progress. He didn't like the attention, but he couldn't deny the good that had come from a single moment of injustice. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. "Mr. Branson, your experience shed light on a gap in care we can no longer ignore. In your honor, we're partnering with pharmacies nationwide to ensure no veteran is ever denied essential medication again." Hal folded the letter slowly and set it down, his hand resting on it like a quiet vow. His eyes misted, not from pride but from relief. Maybe, just maybe, all he'd endured had meant something. That evening, Rachel joined him on the porch. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" she asked. Hal gave a dry chuckle. "Over a bottle of pills. And look what it became." He looked out across the yard. A light breeze rustled the trees. The world felt just a bit less heavy. "I guess," he said. "Sometimes you gotta nearly die to remind people you're still alive." Rachel didn't laugh. She simply nodded, because in a world quick to praise but slow to protect, Hal Branson's story had rewritten a small corner of the system and etched a truth deep into its foundation. Respect is not a courtesy for veterans. It's a debt long overdue.